Howard Cox, who is the doyen of Fair Fuel UK, who's ran a brilliant campaign for motorists up and down the country. Howard, we love you for the work you've done, but of course we talked to you because you were Reform UK's London mayoral candidate. You've left Reform, Howard. Just remind us why.
Hello to you. And what you've been speaking about, I totally and utterly empathise with what you're trying to say, because my inbox is flooded with people, reformers, loyal reformers, who are absolutely dismayed, worried, what the hell's going on? And you're quite right, Beverly. You know, from my point of view, this should be done behind closed doors until we know the truth and the facts. I happen to love Rupert Lowe. He was there on my day of my London mayoral election. No one from Reform headquarters was there when I was putting my vote in the ballot box in Westminster. The only person there was Rupert Lowe. So I've got some loyalty to him because he was standing by me there. And I knew I wouldn't win that election, but I also stood down in Dover and Deal, and I got 23% of the vote, came second in 3.5 weeks of campaigning. I still support Reform UK, I totally do. But unfortunately, if you criticise the leadership, you are thrown under the bus. And all of the policies, I virtually agree with every one of them in Reform UK. But one of them I don't support, which is basically I did not like the way Reform treat the Tommy Robinson issue. That's what I stood up against, and I was threatened with expulsion unless I withdraw my support in that area. And I refused to do that, and so I got out. I'm not being told what I can and can't say. So that's the reason why I left, Andrew.
Isn't that part of the problem, Howard? When you have a party like Reform, which is full of strong individuals who believe in fundamentally the autonomy of the individual, the freedom of the individual, it kind of underpins so much ideology of what Reform stand for. It's very difficult to get those sorts of people to toe the party line. And that is potentially going to be an issue for the party. I mean, Rupert Lowe was allowed to do this interview. Nobody was stopping him doing it. I mean, they sent him into the lion's den with this guy on my right. Like, if anyone was going to get something out of him, it was going to be Andrew. So that doesn't suggest a dictatorship to me. That suggests a party that says, say what you think.
I think, to be fair, he didn't tell him he was doing the interview with me. Perhaps if he did, they might have said you can't do it. But Howard, the point is here that what Rupert's really getting at is Nigel Farage running a one-man show? Is it properly democratised? Is it a team? Did you feel it was a proper team?
I have to say, no, I didn't feel part of the team. What I stand on is policies. I've got no ambition. I don't want to be Prime Minister. I don't want anything like that. I just want this country back. And those are the sorts of things I was fighting for. And Richard Tice asked me to stand as London Mayor. And it took me 2 to 3 months to actually say, yes, I do that, Andrew Bev.
Yeah.
And I was delighted and I was honoured to do it. But, there's lots of things, I won't go into the detail, but I felt that the headquarters, and ever since Zia took over, and I stood for 2 elections for Reform, in the general election and the London Mayor. Ever since Zia took over, no one has spoken to me from headquarters, and he took over last July. And I think that's a bit disrespectful. I haven't got a great thick skin. I'm perhaps not really cut out to be in frontline politics, but I am cut out supporting grassroots people who are struggling to get on at the moment. And that's what I believe in. I'm 70 years of age, and probably in 2029 I won't be around. Who knows what's going to happen? But fundamentally, I support what Ben's comments are on the basis this is not a democratically run party. You've got this new company called Reform 2025 Limited, or whatever it's called, and there are 2 directors, and it's Zia and Nigel. How is that really part of the members taking control? So my call on all of the people in Reform headquarters, put out a ballot to all of the members and say who should be running the party. Then I think everyone would actually, totally get behind Nigel. Nigel's still the man to run this party. He is the brand. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not knocking him personally, but I am knocking the fact that I think the structure is wrong.
Howard, what do you make of the reports that, my own hunch is it won't happen, but who knows? The FT reports on the front page today that Elon Musk may put up the money for Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe to run their own alternative party, which would completely split the Reform vote.
Well, it is no doubt about it. It's worryingly sick that the disparate right. We've got so many people on the right-hand side. People are crying out for a centre-right party in the form of a Thatcherite sort of mentality, which is where I come from. But Elon Musk has nailed his colours to the post. He actually said that Nigel shouldn't be leader, and perhaps Rupert should be. Those are the sorts of things. And Ben is talking a lot of sense. I've got a huge respect for Ben, and and I'm part of his GB Pact group, which is basically a think tank putting together right-wing policies for people to follow. At the moment, it's not a party. It's purely just a body to talk about the policies that people are crying out that should be implemented.
All right, Howard, great to see it. Fabulous-looking Howard Cox for 70 years old.
Yeah,
Had no idea, Howard.
And you'll still be with us in 2029, Howard. I'm pretty sure about that.
Great
Look forward to seeing you then.
And keep up the good work on Fair Fuel, Howard. Keep up the good work.
Do you know what's so heartbreaking about all this is there are so many people in the country for whom reform were, let's hope still are. I don't want those people disappointed this morning. The hope for a change from the uni party. I was talking to a woman yesterday and she was saying a friend of hers from Reform, she couldn't buy her teenager the trainers that he wanted because she paid her membership because she wanted to join Reform so much. It made that much difference to her. So they need to sort it out. They need to sort it out. I'm sure they will.
Caroline, I think I know what you're going to say. So let's talk to Stephen Wolfe first. Stephen, you worked very closely with Nigel Farage when you were in UKIP. Is he as thin-skinned as perhaps people may think?
Well, yes, in some ways he is, unfortunately. He's a great ego. He's a good speaker. He's capable of rallying the troops, and certainly he's somebody who's campaigned incredibly hard to achieve us leaving the European Union. But with everybody who has an ego, and you do need an ego to be able to succeed in politics, unfortunately there is another side to it, and it's a side that's been well documented, I'm afraid. When it comes to those challenging Nigel in any way, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like people who, in the words of Rupert Lowe, are tall poppies. This began many, many years ago when, first of all, in UKIP, when he took out the founders of UKIP at that time. He then had the former Labour MP who joined UKIP. Suddenly his name's just slipped my mind.
Kilroy Silk.
Kilroy Silk. They challenged him, and at that time he called Kilroy Silk divisive and could not work with other people within the party. And that pattern has continued, I'm afraid. He did so with David Campbell Bannerman, who was a fellow MP when he wanted to become leader of the party, then took on Patrick O'Flynn after an article in The Times where he said Nigel was a snarling, thin-skinned, aggressive man. He took out Suzanne Evans and suspended her for disloyalty. He also did the same with Douglas Carswell, who said he should shut up for causing disunity. And of course, recently we've had Ben Habib and now Rupert Lowe. So the history is there, and the point that Nigel should really embrace is he should embrace all this talent.
Caroline,
he should welcome the fact that there are good people there.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Caroline, Nigel isn't here to defend himself against those accusations, so why don't you have a go?
Okay, in Reform, we believe in the higher standards, was told in public office. And unfortunately, Rupert Lowe has fallen below these standards and he's now been investigated. Obviously, we don't know the details of those investigations, but Reform are taking allegations and this situation very seriously. And we have a duty of care to staff and we have a duty of care to our members. And that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, but what about, Caroline, the suggestion from Stephen Wolfe that Nigel does not like people who become popular, who challenge him? That was the point Stephen's making, and that's the point Rupert Lowe has made, and Ben Habib said when he talked to us here on the programme yesterday morning. These are serious people.
These are serious people, and they did have a good career ahead of them as politicians. But you have to work as a team, and you have to realise that there can, in a team, only be one leader. There's no I in team. And unfortunately, because Rupert became very, very popular quite quickly and was very good at speaking and on Twitter, but you can't misinterpret all those likes on Twitter to compare with Nigel Farage. You can't, Rupert Lowe cannot compare with Nigel. He wouldn't have the same charisma, he wouldn't have the same energy. You know, you have to bring energy to a party, and Nigel's energy is boundless.
Stephen, are you disappointed, though, to see this fracturing of people who have come into public life and said they're going to undermine the uni party and they're going to offer something new for the voters? You must be quite disheartened by the fact that there is this schism now arising.
Absolutely. When I left UKIP in 2016, the European Parliament in 2019, I've kept my counsel, not criticised Nigel, the Brexit Party, Reform, or anyone within that. In some ways, I've tried to work where I could in some ways. And reason why? Because like so many people in this country, you really, really want to have a political party that can challenge the Conservatives and Labour Party over really important issues, such as immigration that you've talked about already on this show. And so it is incredibly disappointing to see this kind of fractiousness, this division once more within the party, and really the decapitating, whichever way you might want to look at it, of a really important figure of reform with a huge amount of respect, whom I've met only briefly. And I seem to see this sort of thing happening all the time. And whereas Caroline might be right in saying that there's no I in team, but there is no team in success there's no success without a team. And good leadership, great leadership, is about recognizing there are people with different talents and giving them portfolios, opportunities to speak, and expressing that message to so many more people. No one succeeds on a one-man band ever, and sooner or later that falls. And at the moment, that's not what we need in this country.